We're going to be doing a My Hero Academia sort of quick guide on how to play for those of you that are just getting into the game, sorry, and want to learn how to play these cards, or at least want to know what these cards are about. Maybe you got some cards recently, or maybe you've seen it, or maybe you just heard about this card game from a friend. We're going to cover like some of the general references for the game, so that way you can at least know how to play the cards and just kind of get a feel for the game right off the bat. So first things first, there will be timestamps in this video. This video might be a little bit long. I want to take my time and explain things. I'm talking fast now, but I'm going to talk extremely slow when I get to explaining like the mechanics and certain details of the cards, and like make sure that you just understand how things work, because there are some parts of this game that can get kind of confusing for new players, where there is a bit of a, I want to say, a bit of a learning curve for memorizing certain things, and when you're taking in new information, it kind of makes it hard for you to process things. So I'm going to take my time and do this. So I'm going to have timestamps so you can jump back and forth and maybe like, see where it is something that you can learn, or maybe something that you can pick up on, or maybe something that you may understand later and come back to and be like, oh, okay, now I understand what he was talking about with this section. So let's get started with this. We're going to start off with the characters. I'm going to cover the Bakugo demo deck because it's just going to be easier, since it's a character that I like, that I know, that I play a lot of, to explain a lot of things about this. So first off, we have the character cards. I'm using a new camera, so it's going to be a little bit difficult focusing in and out. I'm going to try to do as much edits as I can when it doesn't focus, so just know that there will be jump cuts. All right, so first off, we have Bakugo. I'm about to say Batsugo. Katsuki Bakugo. He has a lot of interesting parts on this card. All characters are kind of like this with their information. So you have your difficulty, which will be explained later. You have the name of the character, which is his name. So there are different versions of characters, and I'll get into that in a second. Every card has a block modifier, which you see up here with the shield that says 0 plus. And for all characters, they have different hand size. So Bakugo is a 6 hand size character. He has 28 health. Him and Midoriya, for the demo sakes, this is a demo deck. So they both have 6 card hand size, 28 health. Each character has different hand size based on their health. So if they have more health, they might have a lower hand size, or if they have a higher hand size, they might have a lower health. And then on the side here on the left, we have the elements. So we have the air element, which is this blue vortex. We have death, which is the skull. Then we have fire, which is the fireball. So when you're deck building, these elements are what you're going to use to build a deck. Over here, we have characters. So this is character 1. So this is version 1 of Bakugo from season 1. As the characters grow in seasons, they're represented on the card by their character number, and sometimes their element will change and their effects will change, and even their hand size and health will change based on where they are at that point in the story, which is the cool thing about this game. Characters evolve, decks evolve, everything evolves. So in here we have his effect text. So for Bakugo has a response. Responses are instant abilities that can be used at any time that effect meets the criteria. I'm going to say that again. Responses are instant abilities that can be used at any time that effect is available. Okay, so if it meets that criteria, you can use it the moment that goes off. So this response says in green, so that's how you know it's a response. All responses are in green text. Response: after your blocked Fury attack resolves, discard it from your card pool. Now, what is your card pool and what is a Fury attack? Your card pool is up here. This is where you play your cards. You're going to play your cards in these zones till you're familiar with it. This comes with the rival deck, and that's going to be where you play your cards. So an attack, this is an attack. All attacks are these orange bordered cards, which we'll cover again later. But if you see the keyword right here in the middle of the text box, it says Fury. So that is a Fury attack. So getting back to Bakugo, he has an ability that says Enhance. Enhances are in orange text. All types of enhances, there are different types, come in this orange color. So it says Enhance. Destroy one foundation. Your attack gets +2 damage. And we'll cover that as we move forward. But that's Bakugo. If you're wondering, there's a blue number down here. This blue number is called your check number. If you've played Vanguard, it's the same check system. You would be familiar with it right away by me saying that. Every card has this blue number. Every card has this orange number at the top left. That is for identifying the cost and the payment. So you can use these cards, and I'll explain as I go further. So that is our character card. Like I said, each character card is different. Each one has different stats on them. So we have, moving forward, attack cards, and we have foundation cards. There are other cards, but I'm not going to get into them beyond the purpose of this video because this is just a quick reference guide. So first up, we have attack cards. As I showed before, attack cards are these orange cards. So they're orange or red depending on how you see color. They have an orange border at the bottom with the yellow dots and orange at the top. Also known as orange for this like stone-like pattern that's near the cost where the difficulty is. Also, if you're wondering if it's an attack, right here at the right side of the text box, it says attack sideways. Sorry, with the 2 crossing swords. If it focuses. All right. So you have the attack there. So you have almost the same card information. You have your difficulty number. This card costs 4 to play. The name of the card is Signature Right Swing, if you're familiar with it from Season 1. It has a block modifier of yellow on the shield, 1+, which I'll get into later. This is the attack zone. So this is a high attack. It has a red bubble with an arrow pointing upward. And the number inside of that bubble is the speed of the attack. So this is a 3-speed high or 3-speed red attack. The starburst underneath is the damage. So that's how much damage this attack is doing. It's doing 4 damage. As we covered before, it is a fury attack in the text box. It has the elements of air, death, and fire, just like Bakugo. And it has 1 enhance. This enhance says, enhance, discard 2 cards, draw 2 cards. So the discard 2 cards is the cost. The draw 2 cards is the effect. All right. So that is an attack card. Attack cards can have attacks and responses on them. They can have multiple keywords, which we'll show later. Actually, I can show you right now because the next attack. So this next attack has multiple keywords. It says charge, fury, and ranged. So when you see cards in text referencing, like if it's a charge attack or a fury attack or a range attack, a punch attack, a kick attack, that's what the card is talking about. As you see here, this is a orange attack. So it is a mid. It's pointing forward, mid or orange for 4 speed for 4 damage. And then on this one, the text says it says enhance. If the next attack you play this turn is a yellow attack or a low attack, which you can see by the symbol there, the circle with the arrow pointing down, destroy 1 rival foundation. All right, so those are attacks. And then we have foundations. So we're going to cover latent skill. Latent skill is a 2 difficulty, the orange number, 2 difficulty foundation. The way you can tell it's a foundation is it has a gray border around it with the white or light gray dots all around. It also has the hammer over here and it says foundation on the side. So latent skill, the name of the foundation, the block modifier, which we'll get into later. We're not there yet. but it's a red shield. So keep that in mind. As you see, red bubble, red shield, yellow shield, red shield. There's a reason for the colors. Don't jump the gun. Don't try to think about it too fast. Just know that it's there and keep track of what you see. It has all three elements: air, death, and fire, because this is a demo deck, and it has an effect. It says enhance, flip, which means to flip it face down. So if it was here in the stage, what you would do is to use it, you would just take it and flip it face down. And when you flip a card face down, it does not flip back up on your next turn. So keep that in mind. So this effect says flip, discard 2 cards, that's the cost, then draw 2 cards, which is the effect, right? So it's very similar to Signature Right Swing. Bakugo wants you to draw cards, so that way you can punish your opponent with constant offense, right? This is Season 1 Bakugo, so he believes that the best defense is an overpowering offense, right? So you have a foundation that's the same as the attack, right? So you can get more of the effects. Another type of foundation that you'll see is a response foundation, and this one is very specific to Bakugo himself. So this foundation, if it'll focus, this foundation is called Burst Speed. It's a 2 difficulty. The name is Burst Speed. It's a 2 modifier on mid block. It has all 3 elements, and it has a response. This says Bakugo response, so you have to be playing Bakugo, any version of Bakugo, as your character to use this effect. It says Bakugo response. After this card enters the discard pile, which is kind of like the graveyard, if you're familiar with other games, during your attack's enhance step, your rival loses 2 health. This effect cannot reduce your rival's health below 1, pretty much. So for this one, take note of latency skill. Latency skill says discard 2 cards, draw 2 cards, right? So does Signature Right Swing. Signature Right Swing says discard 2 cards, draw 2 cards. So with Burst Speed, if Burst Speed is in your hand, after you've played this attack, when you use the enhance ability, you can discard Burst Speed from your hand to do 2 damage to your rival. Now, I'm going to show you something else with that. Because Bakugo as a character has an enhance ability that says destroy 1 foundation, your attack gets plus 2 damage. If you destroy Burst Speed while it's on the field and it goes to the graveyard, that response still activates. That's what I meant by responses can activate at any time you meet the criteria. For this response, it says after this card enters the discard pile during your attack's enhance step. We'll get more into how cards are played, and we'll use this scenario to explain, how cards and combos work. But there are multiple ways to get this card into the discard pile to get its effect off. You can use either the character or an attack or an enhance to get this to work. And that's how responses and enhances work. So next we're going to cover how to play these cards. All right, so let's get into how to play these cards. Let's say these are the 3 cards that are in your hand. We're going to shuffle and say that this is our deck. So our deck is going to go in the deck slot. Sorry, it's off screen, but I'm working with what I have. So let's say these 3 cards are in your hand. How would you go about using them? Well, first you have to play them. So to play them, you're going to look at that number and you're going to go with that one first. You're going to go with probably the highest card number in your hand first, which is going to be 2. So 0 plus 2, which is up there in the top corner. 0 plus 2 is 2. You're going to do the check system. You're going to flip over the top card of your deck. That blue number at the bottom right is what you're looking for. So 6 is higher than 2, which means the card resolves. You get to play it again. Now, We said we wanted to keep this card in our hand for this demo purposes, so we're going to end our turn there. So we're going to end our turn. We're going to build, which is what this is called. We're going to build that card from our card pool into our staging area. At our next turn, after our rival's turn, we would draw up to 6, but we're going to do that in the play area. We're going to show just how to play these cards. So next, seeing what we did there to play latent skill, we're going to do the same thing on our next turn. So our next turn, we're going to play 4. So it goes here. You always go from left to right with the card pool. So 0 plus 4 is 4. We're going to flip over the top card of our deck. It's a 3, right? So 3 is lower than 4. So how this works is I'm going to commit latent skill to turn this 3 into a 4 so I can keep that card. So now that we've successfully resolved that card, we're now allowed to play Signature Right Swing. Signature Right Swing has an effect. Enhance, right? Enhance, discard 2 cards, draw 2 cards. So let's say we have more than 2 cards in our hand. Like I said, demo purposes. So we're going to discard this card to our discard pile, and then we're going to draw 2 cards. So when we draw the 2 cards, before we draw these 2 cards, before we draw them, this response activates in the discard pile. So we send this card off and we say response. I'm going to use Burst Speed's response ability, which is Bakugo response. After this card enters the discard pile during my attack's enhanced step, my rival loses 2 health. And that's how that happens. It goes there, goes to the discard pile, they lose 2 health. I draw my 2 cards, and we continue. That's how you play cards. That's generally how you do it. I'll get into how the players do their turns next. All right. So now we're going to cover how to play. All right. Now that you know a little bit about the card game, now that you know about attacks and foundations, we're going to cover just first turn aesthetics. So that way you can get the hang of how this looks and how it works. So because Bakugo has a 6-card hand size, which we covered earlier with his card, 6 cards. If I am player 1, this is how this would work. So my opponent cuts my deck. My rival in this game, when you see it say rival, it's talking about your opponent. I'm going to get 6 cards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I'm going to look at that hand. So this is a good hand. I've got 2 attacks. I've got 4 foundations. I can play these foundations. I cannot play these attacks. When it's your first turn, if you're player 1, your character starts tapped or committed. Committed is what the keyword, the wording is in this game. So that way, you know you're going first, and there's reasons to that. So if this is my hand, this is something that I want to see. I have an aggressive temper in my hand, so I might not want to lose that card, or I might want to have it on the field. To block, you have to have cards in hand. You cannot block with cards on the field. So I have to think about this. I can't attack my first turn. What do I want to do? I definitely want the latency skills on the field. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play this card. I'm going to play latent skill in the first slot of the card pool. I'm going to flip over the top card of my deck. 5 is greater than 2, because 0 plus 2 is 2. That clears. I can play another card. I'm going to play Aggressive Temper. 1 plus 2 is 3. Flip over the top card of the deck. This is the 3, the blue number. 3 is equal or greater. I can play another card. Now I'm going to play Arrogant Disposition. 2 plus 1 is 3. You see how I'm stacking these numbers so that the higher difficulties are going first and the lower difficulties are going to go afterward, showing that it's easier to progress, right? I want to successfully play these cards so I can get them in my stage area. So 2 plus 1 is 3. Flip over the top card. It's a 3. So that clears. Now, the next progressive difficulty is going to be 3 plus whatever I play. 3 plus 2 is going to be 5. Sorry about that. 3 plus 2 is going to be 5. So I run the risk of it not going through. Let's try it anyway. 3 plus 2 is 5. Top card of my deck is 6. So that's higher, so it goes through. If this was not a 6, and let's say this was a 3, my turn would end because there's no way I can pay for this card outside of the check. I missed the check number, and it would immediately just go to discard and end my turn. But since I checked a 6, it clears, and now I get to build these cards into my stage. This game is also a deck building game. So if you're familiar with deck building games where you play cards and then you build a deck that you can utilize resources from, that's also what My Hero Academia is like. Now, let's say my opponent has their turn, they do the same thing. On the beginning of my turn, I'm going to ready my character. And now this signifies this is round 2. So now that we're at turn 2, I get to attack, right? I have 2 attacks in my hand, and I want to keep them. And now I have to draw up to 6 because that's Bakugo's hand size. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw 4 cards. I will cover other ways to play the game later. There are other things that you can do in between them, but for now we're just going to cover the basics. So that's 4, 5, 6, and I drew into 3 burst speeds, which is awesome, right? Because that's a lot of damage I can do. And I have 2 latent skills on the field from the last turn. So that gives me a bunch of upside. So what am I going to do? I also have a combo here with my attacks, which I will explain. So we're not going to get into blocks right now. We're going to get into blocks later. But there are 2 cards here that I can use. So I'm going to play Monster Blast first. It was a card that we looked at earlier. I'm going to play it. So 4 plus 0 is 4. I'm going to flip over the top card of my deck. It is another Monster Blast, which is 3. 4 is greater than 3, which means the card failed. But I'm going to tap or commit my aggressive temper to add a +1 to that check number, making it a 4. By paying the cost with one of my resources, I now clear the cost to play this card. That's how that works. That's why you need foundations in your first turn, so that way you can play attacks in your second and greater turns. So, Monster Blast is played. The card is orange, which means I can now activate Enhance abilities. So, I can either use the Enhance ability of the attack that I just played, my character, my foundations that are not committed, or I can pass priority. When you enter the Enhance step, think of it as a sport, like volleyball or tennis. You're constantly hitting priority back and forth from your side of the field to their side of the field. So, what I'm going to do first to play out this turn is I'm going to activate Monster Blast's Enhance. It says Enhance. If the next attack you play this turn is a low attack, destroy 1 rival foundation. So I'm going to declare that I'm going to activate this Enhance from Monster Blast. I'm going to read it out loud to my opponent so they know what it does, which it targets the next attack that I play. And now it is their turn to activate and enhance. It is not their turn, as in their turn to play cards. It is their turn to activate an ability that they built on the field. So if they have foundations or their character, they can use those effects that are now on the field from their turn when they played cards. If they activate an enhance or not, if they choose to pass, it goes back to me. Now I can use another one of my enhance abilities. So I'm going to look at what's in my hand because I have these 3 lovely cards in my hand that do something. I'm going to use Latent Skill. Latent Skill, which is a card we looked at earlier, says enhance. Flip, discard 2 cards, draw 2 cards. So I'm going to declare, since my opponent passed priority for the sake of demo purposes, I'm going to flip this card face down, which is the cost. I'm going to take 2 cards in my hand. I'm going to discard them. So since both of these cards have a response, they both activate at the same time. I'm going to activate both responses and deal 4 damage to my opponent. And then I'm going to draw 2 cards. I drew another burst speed. I drew a Blast Rush Turbo, another attack. So now I have 2 more burst speeds. I have another latent skill. Since I used this card has now resolved. I drew my cards, I discarded my cards. My opponent took the 4 damage. It is now their chance to use another effect. If they pass, which we'll say they do, this is the hard part of the game, is learning the enhance step. If they, let's say they pass for the sake of this demonstration, I get another chance to use this latent skill. Since I'm going to go for maximum damage, I'm going to activate this latent skill. I'm going to flip it face down as it says. I'm going to discard another 2 burst speeds. I'm going to activate them when I discard them, doing 4 more damage to my opponent. And I'm going to draw 2 cards. Now you see how Bakugo works. I'm drawing into these attacks and I'm dealing damage, right? So now I have 3 attacks and 2 foundations in my hand. So now that I've used that effect, that card is face down, it's resolved, the cards were discarded, I drew my cards from my deck, it goes back to my opponent for a chance to activate an enhance ability. Let's say they don't, and they pass priority back to me. Now I can use Bakugo's enhance. Bakugo's enhance states, destroy 1 foundation, your attack gets +2 damage. And I need to run and get my dice real quick. For the sake of game, you can use either dice or you can use a digital life counter on your phone. So I'm going to activate Bakugo's enhance. I am going to destroy this aggressive temper. Aggressive temper is a foundation that says response after this card enters the discard pile. During your attack's enhance step, your attack gets +2 damage. So I'm going to use Bakugo's enhance to destroy this card, sending it to the discard pile. I'm going to activate its response because it's entering the discard pile during my attack's enhance step. We're still in the enhance step. I'm going to give this attack +2 damage. So I'm going to take this die. I'm going to give it +2 damage. So it is now 4 damage +2, making it 6. I'm going to put it on the right side to indicate it's getting a plus. But Bakugo's enhance gives it another 2 damage for destroying a foundation. So now it is 8 damage. This is a now 4 speed mid attack for 8 damage. If you like these dice, I got them from Geeky Tees in Burbank, California. And now I'm going to move forward. So now I used Bakugo's enhance. I destroyed the foundation. It's in the discard pile. My attack gained the effect from both the enhance and from the foundation. My opponent has another chance to activate an effect. So let's say they don't. And now we would move to the damage step. I pass priority because I have nothing left to do. My opponent passes priority because they don't want to do anything. So then we enter the damage step, which is now when your opponent can play blocks from their hand. So I'm going to get into blocking later because that requires a bit of a setup to kind of explain things, and I'm only one person. But let's say they block this attack. So they played a card in their card pool the same way I did. They do the check for it. The check would be based off the shield number of the card in their hand that they're playing, plus the speed of my attack. My attack is 4. It's a mid. So they would take the 4 from this bubble plus the shield of a card from their hand that they're playing on the field in their card pool, and that's how you would equal the number that you check for off the top of your deck for your opponent. But I'll get into that later. So let's say they block it. So they blocked it. Now what? Well, now Bakugo has that response. And that response is after your blocked Fury attack resolves, you may discard it from your card pool, right? So let's say they blocked it. Now I can send it to the discard pile and play another attack in my hand. Now, because this card left the field when I used this enhance ability, that effect still activates. So, if I play a low attack, I still get that effect because this effect was already active and it's still active even if the card has left the card pool. So if I was to play Blast Rush Turbo afterward, Blast Rush Turbo is a low attack. It is a 5 difficulty. It says Blast Rush Turbo, that's the name of the attack. It is a low attack, which is the same symbol from the Monster Blast. It has 5 damage, and it has its own effects. So, now I have the option to play another attack. Let's say they did not block that attack that happened. If they did not block it, and the attack went through, and they just took the damage, I would still be able to play another attack or another foundation. It is up to me on what I want to do. I can either end my turn or play more cards after it resolves. The enhance step is the longest part of the game for new players because it is something that requires you to know what you have on the field, what you can activate in different places, and how it goes. But once you get it and you go back and forth enough, you start to see how it works. And that's how you play cards and that's how you move forward. Because after that, let's say I didn't want to play another attack. Let's say that resolves. I don't want to play another attack. I don't want to risk it. I already have very little foundations as it is. I want to build more foundations for more resources. I can do that. I can then play another foundation. Let's see what I would have checked. So that's 1 plus 2, which is 3. Top card of the deck, 3. So if I had played Monster Blast, that would have been a 5. So I would have lost more resources for my opponent's turn. So I'm playing this. 1 plus 2 is 3. It clears. I get to play another card. Do I want to? No, because I have to block with cards from my hand on my opponent's turn. Remember that. You have to block with cards that are in your hand. So I want to keep some attacks in hand, but I also want to keep some attacks to block with, some cards to block with in general. So I'm going to end my turn. I'm going to build this. And we said that one dealt damage for the sake of this demonstration. So I'm going to choose to flip this card face down and put it in my momentum pile. The My Hero Academia card game is a manual fighting game. So just like how they're fighting video games like Tekken, Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, etc., your momentum meter for your successful attacks is like your super gauge. And let me explain why that is your super gauge. So for a card like Blast Rush Turbo, you have this effect. Enhance. Discard 1 momentum. This attack gets plus 1 damage for each Fury attack in your discard pile. Now, this is a super attack, right? You're going to use one of your momentums, one of your successful attacks, to discard it to give this plus damage for each Fury attack in your discard pile. So let's say I did play it. Let's say I have the momentum, which I have 1 bar of super gauge. There's no limit on how much you can use. It's my turn. I play Blast Rush Turbo. I flip this card over. Oh, look, it's a 5. 5 is equal or greater than 5, so it clears. Now we have entered the enhance step. I'm going to use that enhance. I'm going to discard this momentum to the discard pile, and now it says I need to count for each one. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Fury attacks in my discard pile right now. So that means this attack gets +5 damage, which means this would be a 4-speed low. If it'll focus with me. There we go. 4-speed low for 10 damage. That's a lot of damage, right? And it can get even higher than that. The cards are designed to work with themselves. Like, that's not even the extent of the turn. That was just the first enhance. So let's say my opponent passes their enhance. Well, now I can do more stuff. I can use Bakugo, right? Bakugo's enhance says destroy a foundation. This attack gets +2 damage. It's already at 10. I'm going to use Bakugo's enhance. I'm going to destroy aggressive temper. Aggressive temper, when it enters the discard pile during my attacks and hand step, gets +2 damage. Guess what? That's +4 damage. So now it's at 14 damage. This is how you build combos in this game. This is how you play cards. This is how you get to your win state. This is how you play the game. So that's just how this works for playing cards. Next, I will get into how to do blocks. I'm going to use the rule book that comes with the rival deck to explain blocking because there needs to be visual examples. All right. Next in this in this guide, we're going to show, using the manual, like I said before, how to use blocks and where blocks are. So, in the rule book that you get with the rival deck, it explains blocking and how blocks work. Now, you can look this up online. I will include the link in the description below for the digital rule book. But we're going to take a look at this right here. So, high or red attacks. So you see, if it heroic strike is a red attack. So that is a high attack. High attacks, which are red, can be blocked by high blocks and mid blocks, which are orange. So that little shield that you saw, which is at the bottom, red is for high, orange is for mid. And that's how you do blocks. So it can only be the color closest to it. So let's move on. Orange, a mid attack. Aspiring Punch is a mid attack, which is orange. Orange attacks can be blocked by any block zone, red, orange, or yellow. Velocity Punch, which is a yellow attack, a low attack. Yellow attacks, or low attacks, I said yellow. Low attacks, which are yellow, can only be blocked by yellow or orange. So you cannot use red for high to block a low, which is yellow, and vice versa. You can't use a yellow block to block a high attack because they are in opposite ends. If someone's attacking you from the sky, you're not going to get down on the ground and put your arms up. That doesn't make sense. So you're going to use the corresponding colors for how to block. Now there is a diagram or an image that shows what I'm talking about. So, signature right swing, which is the card that we have here, is a high attack. So let's use the Bakugo versus Midoriya fight in Season 1. Bakugo always starts off with his signature right swing, as Deku said. That's his signature attack to open up fights with, right? So it is a 3-speed high attack. That is reflected here. It is a 3-speed high attack. You are going to block with rigorous training, which is a 2 modifier on mid block. Now, what does that mean? That means you take 3 plus 2 equals 5. So, let's say this is our deck. Let's say we're the Midoriya player in this situation. Our deck is here. We're going to look at 3 plus 2. Our block is a 2. Their speed is a 3. We're going to flip over the top card of our deck. That number needs to equal these two combined. So if the check does not equal these two combined, or if it does, that's what happens. Now, for the block's sake, the block does not mean that that's how much damage you do or that's how much damage is reduced by. It's just a matter of how you've matched up the colors. So if the colors match, going back to the example, if the colors were to match, if this was a red attack with a red shield, the red shield blocking the red attack takes 0 damage. If they do not match in color, so the orange, so if they were both orange, the defending player would take no damage. It's all about the color, not about the numbers. The damage is the starburst on the attack. That's how much damage will be done. If the colors match, you take 0 damage. If the colors do not match, you take half damage, rounded up. So, since Signature Right Swing does 4 damage, as we saw with the card, if you were to half block it or partial block if you're not matching colors, then you would take 2 damage from the block. I hope that makes sense. That's how it works. If you do not understand it, there's another visual representation I can use, which uses the cards themselves. So let's use these two cards as an example. So you see how they're lined up. This would be the defending player. This would be the attacker. So as the defending player, 3 plus 3 is 6. That's what you're checking for. 3, from your perspective, since you're on defense, it would look more like this. So it would be 3, your shield, plus the speed of the attack equals 6. That's what you're checking for off the top of your deck. So since the shield and the speed bubble, the attack zone, match in color, you would take no damage. If they do not match, you take half the damage. So 2 plus 3 equals 5. If I check a 5 or higher, I would take half of 4, which is 2. And that's how blocking works in this game. Literally, that's how blocking works. There is an example with details if you need to read it in the rule book. Like I said, the description will be online. The description is the digital version will be online, so you can look at it online if you want to. I will post it in the description below. But that's how blocking works. So for scenario purposes, we'll just say there's 2 Bakugos. Somebody played an attack. Let's say they played an attack. I'm going to play a block in the card pool. So this is the incoming attack. It's a 3 speed high for 4 damage. I'm going to play this block when we hit damage, right? When we get to damage after both players pass during the enhanced step. For damage calculation, I play the mid. I'm going to flip, look for 5. I see a 3. 2 plus 3 is 5. I needed a 5. I don't have it. I would tap my foundations to pay for the rest. Or if I get a 6, let's say the 2 plus the 3 is 5. That's a 6. It resolves. I take 2 damage. That is blocking. And that is the game for the most part. There are other things that we can get into that are a little bit more advanced, like the Mulligan rule for player one and player two. But for player two, they have a slightly different aspect to the game. So let's get into player two. So player two does not start with their character committed. They would shuffle, they would shuffle their deck. Their opponent would cut their deck, and then they would draw their cards based on their character. 3, 4, 6. So they would look at their hand. This is a horrible hand. Player two has different options than player one. Player one, if they saw this, keep in mind, I'm talking about player one right now. So player one, if they drew a hand like this, that was all attacks, they would have to put every card down and draw a new 6. They can do that twice. They can only do that twice. Player two for the mulligan, they get to go, well, I don't want this, I don't want this, but I want to keep this. And they can only do it once. So what would happen is, we'll use player one as an example. Player one, they would have to go, this whole hand sucks. I'm going to draw a new 6. And they can do that twice and then look at what they have. And if it's good, they keep it. If it's bad, they do it again. And they're stuck with that hand. For player two, what player two would do in the mulligan rule is, okay, this is a bad hand. I want to keep this, but I don't want any of this. So I'm going to do this. Put all that down, and I'm going to get 5 more cards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and they're stuck with whatever they get from this point on. So there were 3 more attacks. You got 2 foundations. That's what they're stuck with. And then at the start of their turn, they can do a review. For review, if you're going second, you can do it first. For player 2, let's say they did their mulligan or not. They look at their hand. It is now the start of their turn. Player 1 just ended their turn. Player 2 now gets to look at their hand and go, I don't want that card. I don't want that card right now. I'm going to discard it. I'm going to review 1. And now I'm going to draw up to 6. And at the first turn of player 2, they get to draw 1 extra card. Remember that. Player 2, for their first turn, gets to draw 1 extra card. But every player can do a review at the beginning of their turn. That's a little advanced, but I wanted to cover that because I know someone will be like, how do you do this reviewing thing? People keep talking about reviewing. So that's review. Review is you get to discard 1 card in your hand, 1 card in your hand to your discard pile at the start of your turn, and you get to draw a card for the difference. Okay? And you can only do that once a turn, not twice every turn or at the end of your turn or at the beginning of your opponent's turn, only on the start of your turn. And there you go. That's how to play the My Hero Academia card game as a beginner guide if you're just starting out with the rival decks, or if you're doing a demo and you don't remember, or if you're just curious how the game goes. I can post some matches moving forward. Once I get my friends over and we start to record matches, I can definitely record those for you if you would like. But that is how you play the game, and I will see you in the next video. If you have any more questions about the card types or different things in the cards or situations, feel free to ask. I will answer any questions in the description below. If you want a more advanced beginner guide on how to play the game, going into full-on steps, not using the demo deck, using an actual deck, I can do that as well. But for now, that covers just the how-to to get you learning how to play the game, what you're looking for on the cards, how to play the cards, and how turns work. Because that's literally how turns work. The game is very simple. You're just playing a card, flipping the top card of your deck to check for it, play another card, continue, rinse and repeat each turn. And once you get the hang of it, once you start to know what's in your hand, what's in your deck, what you're doing to play, certain effects at certain times, everything starts to move a lot faster. Um, the other thing I will say moving forward is just get comfortable with the cards. If you want to learn some easy steps on how to deck build, if you want to build your own deck or modify the rival deck, the current rival deck, which is Midoriya versus Bakugo, I can help you with that. I can do some tips and updates, but just let me know what you guys are looking for, and I will make videos on it the best that I can. And I'll stop talking. That's it for me. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please leave any comments down below or any questions, and I'll be sure to answer them as best as I can. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out.